Okay, so hopefully a quick tutorial for creating this flower sack animation, intro to adding armatures. You can find this whole thing reviewed. You're going to be animating some simple action. What would I say, 4 seconds plus? I said 2 seconds plus. And you can see a lot of examples here, or a lot of ideas of great animation exercises to inspire your simple action. That you will try to animate your flower sack doing in this slideshow from today. So first thing to do is to sculpt your flower sack. And oops. And I'll turn on these keystroke recorders. And what you might want to do starting out, just to make it a bit more straightforward, is to do a new file and make it into a sculpting file. Okay, so now you have a simple sphere, but it's subdivided to a lot of geometry. You can see. And so from there, you can use some of the deform tools, probably most effectively here. I'm going to increase my brush size to something that's maybe too much. Oh, and also I'll turn on mirroring, x-axis mirror. And so to expand, to just get more of that flower bag shape. You know, what is the flower bag? I call it flower sack. It's just a rough shape. It was an exercise that Disney animators used to train themselves because it's almost like a simple character with just a basic mass with some greater weight at the bottom, and sort of surrogates for arms and legs with no head. You don't have to worry about the character expressions or anything like that. But can you communicate something of a personality or attitude just with that amount of information? You will see. So that is kind of for rough movements, kind of rough regions, and then this one's a little sharper fall off of these distortions. We have something that begins to look a little bit like a bag. And then if we want to fill out these little the seams, sort of, we can use the snake hook tool. And you really have to go all around the object in order to get a sense of how it's working. I'm going to shrink the brush a little bit. That was with the F key. And with the snake hook tool, I can get the sort of sharper seam there. And great. Yeah, that's not wonderful, but I'll just let it be. Doesn't have to be much more crazy than that. I'll leave sculpt mode. Hopefully this will speed up a little bit. Okay, so once I have this, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add the armature. Now the armature is let's see. I think first I'm just going to make this a little bit less data rich. So I'm going to pause the recording and restart once I've reduced the complexity. Okay, so hopefully this will work a little bit better. It's a much simpler object now. So we'll see. So the next thing we want to do is actually add an armature. And that will allow us to animate this thing very, very easily. And then we'll be able to kind of recreate some kind of simple action like a yawn or a jump or a roll or I don't know, looking around confusedly, that kind of thing. So I'm going to go into my front view, and I'm going to add a armature, single bone. And at first you won't be able to see it. I can turn off I should go turn off my visibility of my quad sphere and see it. For some reason, interesting, I still can't see it. In class, some people have this weird setting. So if you can't see your armature bone, it should be visible by default. It's weird that it's not. So up here is the overlays, like the grid and stuff that's, sort of helper imagery. I'm going to click on the drop-down arrow and make sure that you can see bones. And also we're going to see this. I don't know why that's off. I hope it wasn't off for you, because that would be kind of ridiculous. You need to be able to see this stuff. Why add it if you don't want to see it? But not only do you want to see this bone, you want to see it all the time. You want to be able to manipulate it even when it's within this flower sac. Yeah, the idea here is that the bone is going to actually be connected to the flower sac mesh, and by moving the bone, the flower sac will move in correspondence. So making sure that we have the armature selected, we go to this little running stick figure tab in the properties tab and go down to viewport display and click on this in front. So here we have this visible, even though it's inside the object, we have it visible from any side. And so now we're going to, I'll just kind of move this down a little bit more toward the base. And then I'm going to go into, I hit tab to go into edit mode for the armature. And the cool thing about, well, one thing about bones is that you can add to this bone in edit mode, add to create a skeleton or an armature, bone structure, whatever. So we're just going to add like, a couple bones for the arm and hand, and 1 or 2 bones for the legs. So here's how I'll do it. I can either select the whole bone, move it around. I can select the node. It's the front node to move it around. But bones have a direction. That's the direction of like kind of authority. Who's the parent and who's the child? And I'll show you what that means in a minute. I'm going to click on this node and hit E to extrude. And I'm going to make like an arm extrusion here. And when you're doing this, you're going to want to make sure you look around the other side to make sure that it's nestled well in there. And I'm just going to make a second. I'm going to bring this up a little bit and make a second bone to be a kind of wiggly hand. And now I can easily duplicate this to mirror it on the other side. So I'm just going to wait on doing the left arm. But I want to make the leg. So here's where it's a little tricky, because this is the kind of like mother bone, the big one in charge. And these are all the kind of baby bones. When I'm animating, if I move this, then these will move. If I move this, this one won't move, but this one will. I'll share an example. Now, the way we're going to animate this later on is going into pose mode. And right now it's not connected to the mesh, but let me show you. So I can move this by rotating or hitting G to move it around. But if I rotate this middle one, it only moves what is underneath it, what is, a child of. So this is like, you can see the wider section is like the direction of like the parent. And this is kind of like the forward direction, parent to child to child. So I can do this, but I can't even, if I hit G, it doesn't move, it only rotates, okay? So going back to edit mode, what I want to do here is I want to add a leg that is a child of this mother bone. I can't do it from here, it won't work right. So I have to actually extrude it from the front of this mother bone. So I'm going to hit B to extrude. And that might be fine. You can decide whether that's okay. But if it's kind of awkwardly placed, you can, what I recommend doing is actually selecting this whole bone and right-clicking. You can also find that in the menu, or the Armature menu. I'm going to right-click on it though and say, I always forget parent menu, clear. And you can actually let's clear the parent so that it's no longer connected to the mother bone. But we don't want to actually clear it, we want to disconnect it. And so what has happened here is I can hit G to move it, and it's no longer like literally attached to this, but there's still a line of influence. So I can still, I'll still have this leg. And maybe I'll get a little foot going here. Let's make sure that it's well within there. Okay, great. And now what I can do, I could now extrude the ones on this side and do it the same way, or I can just select these bones. Make sure I have the whole bone selected. It's not really selecting all of these. Let's see. I selected this one and these, but this one's hard. I don't want to select the middle bone because I want to duplicate everything else. So I'm just going to click and then hold Shift and click and click and click. Now they're all selected. I'm going to then duplicate. There it is. Or it's Shift D. I duplicated it. I don't want to move it yet. I'm going to hit the right mouse button so that it's duplicated, but it's in the same position. And now I'm going to take my duplicate and mirror this along the x-axis. So now it's been just flipped. And then I'm just going to move it into position, move into position. And they're both children of their mother then. Let's see, and that all looks decent. So now that I have my simple bone structure, I will parent. I went back out into object mode. I'm now going to parent my mesh, my object, to this armature, so I can actually move it with the armature by moving these bones. So I'm going to click to parent anything. You click all the objects, or both of the objects, the parent and the child. You click the child first, and then hold Shift, and click the parent last. So you'll notice that this is the one that clicked last because it's yellow, while the one that was clicked prior is orange or red or something. So when I'm ready, I can either go into Object to the parent menu, which is somewhere, or you can just right click and go to the parent menu here. And I'm going to parent with automatic weights. Okay. And there's not too much complexity here, so it only takes a minute. And to know if this worked, I can click on the armature because I'm going to be manipulating the armature, not the mesh. Go into pose mode and try to move something around. And the mesh should move. Look at that. Wonderful. Okay, play around, cool. But if you find that you messed a lot of things up, you can select all your bones, or you can hit A to select all the bones, and then clear your pose, clear transformation, all. Go back to square one. So what do we do with this? We're going to begin to animate. So I'm going to click on this little plus button and go into my general layout workspace. The layout workspace is the one we start out with, and it just means that it's a slightly different grouping of windows. And it comes with it, complete with a timeline, which we'll use to animate. So I'm now going to take this, and I'm not in pose mode anymore, so I'll go into pose mode. And I can begin animating. And there's a lot that you'll have to get used to animating in pose mode, although it's super easy to start off. So I can just click this, and I might want to start out by keyframing everything, but whatever, let's just do this. And click this. Let's see, I'll rotate, and then I'll hit to keyframe, hit I, and I can choose what properties I want to keyframe. And usually with bones, you could do rotation or location and rotation. And so here I have one keyframe starting me out. And then I can just go down the road there, the timeline, and move this again with R, and then keyframe that. And so now I have the first bit of my motion. If I wanted to move this mama bone, it's going to move the whole structure. You can see the kind of like parent-child relationship in all these bones. Now, if you move a lot of stuff, make sure that you highlight all the bones that you move to keyframe it, because when you're going to keyframe, you're only going to be affecting the bone you have selected. You can see that though I made a keyframe with this bone, it wasn't visible just now because I was only selecting this one. So it's good to be thoughtful about like which bones you are keyframing at a certain time. One thing that will help you out going forward is when you feel very good about a pose, say this here, and I would select all the bones, hit A, and then keyframe everybody. So now this entire pose is saved. This is not very good. I'm not going to bore you by doing a whole animation, but to give yourself a little more grounding, you can add a little plane for yourself and make it kind of your ground plane. It might make it a little easier for you to see how your character should. It looks kind of like a chicken, but how your flower sac should be interacting with its environment a little better. That's up to you. So just look up an action that you want to recreate and try to incorporate anticipation, meaning that if this chicken or flower sac is going to be going this way, it should first wind up going this way. So start off, no, yeah, and I won't bore you with it. But feel free to email with any other questions.